Hello and welcome to Casting Shadows, the official, unofficial podcast for the Shire of the Shadowlands. Hi there, I am Lady Morina O'Donovan.
I'm Elyas Swift.
Hey, you have a title.
I always forget it. That's what happens when you give me a title right before quarantine. I never got to use it.
Mostly mine gets used when people want something, so that's fair.
And nobody wants anything from me. I'm generally kind of useless.
That's not true. Anyway, so thank you for tuning into our second episode. Sorry about the audio quality on our first episode. We have obviously updated microphone systems, so hopefully that shouldn't be a problem in the future. And we kind of realized after recording that we had sort of themed our last episode around, like, wall building and infrastructure. So we're going to kind of keep to that, or attempt to at least. So this week is Japan Week. We're going to be doing
the first of many Japan weeks.
Potentially. This one's got kind of a storm theme, too, so...
Yeah.
So, Japanese storms. They're terrifying. So I'm gonna let you start, actually, and then I'm gonna go. So we're gonna start with the strange stratagems. And go.
Yeah. So the strange stratagem this week, obviously, like we said, is Japan-themed and is based around the origin of the Divine Wind, or Kamikaze. Which the term came around in the 1200s when the Mongols tried to invade Japan after conquering China. They tried on two separate occasions, both of which ended kind of similarly in disaster for the Mongols.
So much bad. So much bad.
The first one launched from Korea, and hopped its way across two islands before hitting the sort of mainland of Japan. And those first two islands went just fine because the Mongols fought very differently from the Japanese, and the Japanese hadn't fought anyone not Japanese for like a century or two. In that the Mongols fought in formations with spears and shields, and the Japanese called out enemy warriors by name for single duels, basically all in a line, which was similar in how I've seen some rapier wars go. And yeah, the Mongols just kind of laughed at them. Like, there's literally an account of a Japanese commander firing an arrow to signal the start of the battle, and the Mongol forces just laughing as the arrow did nothing. And so, yeah, the first invasion by the Mongols went really poorly for the Japanese on the first day of landing. They got beat back and ran away to a hill fort, after killing, like, maybe 7 Mongols. But one of the leaders of the Mongols took an arrow right at the end of the battle as the Japanese were running away. And so the other two argued for a while, of the other two Mongol commanders, and they decided, alright, we're gonna stay on the ship so that we don't get ambushed in the night. The Japanese had retreated to a nearby hill fort, and when the Japanese came back to fight the next day, there was no one left. Basically, all we have to go on is that a wind picked up during the night and blew the Mongol ships out of the harbor into the ocean, where most of them died.
Could you imagine being, like, one of the first people on the scene that morning? Like, weren't we supposed to have, like, a battle or something?
Yeah, like, brave samurai charging to the defense of his homeland to find, like, 3 broken boats and, like, some confused dudes.
You're just there like, oh man, I put on my good armor for this.
And so the Mongols obviously took offense to this, because they hadn't really been defeated on any scale ever. And this tiny little island beat them back without even fighting them. Like, how dare they? And so they built a bigger fleet, and this fleet actually was split in two. There was a fleet that started from China and one that started from Korea again. The Korea one had orders to leave at a later date than the China one because of the further distance. But the China one still was supposed to arrive in the coastal waters about 2 days before the Korea fleet did. And then wait for the Korea fleet, so that they had an amassed massive fleet. And the Mongol commanders went, yeah, nah, this is just a tiny little island nation. We can beat them. We don't need to wait for everybody else. And the Japanese went, yeah, well, we have arrows, and know you're coming this time. And so everywhere the Mongols tried to land, they just got shot with arrows the entire way in, because Japanese realized after the first time that the Mongols weren't going to be polite about killing each other. They just did group formations, and the Japanese went, well, we'll just prevent you from getting in your group formations by preventing you from getting off the boats without being shot by 50 arrows. And so the Mongols left for the day. And that actually went back and forth for about 2 weeks, with the other force joining up and also trying to land. And then just the day after the Japanese started to lose ground a little bit. Not enough for a full landing, but probably the next day the Japanese would have been pushed back. The Mongols anchored offshore, and a typhoon rolls in. Massive storm just devastates the Mongol fleet during the night. Something of 13,000 troops never made it back home out of the whole endeavor. The actual size of the invasion is debated, of either of 100,000 troops invaded or somewhere closer to 40,000. And the Japanese were like, that's twice we've been invaded, and just the winds have killed the enemy for us. We should give that a name. And so they decided on God Wind or Divine Wind, depending on how you read it, of Kamikaze.
Godwind. Yeah, so that was strange stratagems. Like no Russian winter campaigns, maybe no Japanese campaigns during storm season.
Yeah. You would also think that they would know that it was storm season and choose to wait.
I mean, I would think a lot of things, but I'm not a Mongol.
This is true. Although you do wear their hats on occasion.
I do. They're comfy.
They're big and fluffy.
They
stolen
are.
Your hats on occasion.
I think you have, yeah. So for Minute Mythology...
Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. We're gonna be talking about Yuki Onna, or the Snow Woman. More specifically, why you don't break promises with a demon, but if you're gonna, you better be cute about it.
This is already interesting. What?
So, this story starts with an older gentleman and a younger man. And the story that I found kept calling him a man, but then they talk about him growing up, so I'm assuming he was, like, maybe a middle school kid. Not really a man, per se, by modern standards.
But, like, 14, that weird mark of adulthood that they some cultures sometimes have.
Yeah, 13, 14, something like that. So a kid. I'm gonna call him a kid. And they're out, they're going on an errand. I think they were going to cut wood or something like that. And they get lost. And so they end up, it starts to snow. They're looking for shelter. They end up finding this cabin that looks abandoned. And they're like, well, this is what we got, so this is what we're going to do. And they go and they sort of camp out there in the night. They don't even have a fire. They've got nothing. And in the middle of the night, this kid wakes up and realizes that there is this other person in the cabin. And
always a great thing to realize at the middle of the night.
Especially in the wilds of Japan. And it's this immensely beautiful woman, and she's bending over his companion, the older gentleman. And while the kid doesn't know what's happening, the astute listener or astute reader of the story can figure out she's basically eating his soul, or she's sucking his life essence out. Because in the morning, the kid will wake up and find out that the guy has frozen to death in the middle of the night. Well, the Yuki Onna goes to the younger kid, and the kid hasn't moved or made a sound. He's petrified. He's terrified of what's happening. And she turns to the kid, and she kind of looks at him for a minute, and she's like, I can't eat that, it's cute! And so she leaves. But before she leaves, she realizes he's awake, and she goes, you didn't see anything. You don't tell anybody what happened here. Not your family, not your friends. When you grow up and get married and you have a wife and you have kids, you don't tell anybody. Poorly timed ping on my phone, thank you. Anyway.
Let me just go in and quiet my phone.
You don't tell anybody what you saw. And the kid's like, okay, don't kill me. Like, that's fine. 'Cause what else are you gonna say?
I'm gonna tell everybody, murder demon.
So, the kid grows up, and he's out one day, and he sees this girl about his age, who it's high summer, and she's struggling with this heavy load, and she's very obviously, like, kind of sick. Maybe she's got a fever. So he helps bring her back to his home, and it was going to be just this, hey, you can stay with us until you feel better, and then you're on your way, and she just never left. They fell in love, they got married, they had kids, it's all well and good, and they have this really happy life. He's very prosperous, she is beautiful, and that never seems to fade. As she gave him like 4 kids, and she's still just like as perfectly gorgeous as when they met. And so, of course, the whole town is just, you are the luckiest dude in the world. And comes this night in the middle of winter when there's this massive, massive snowstorm. And then the guy does something stupid. And basically, he's looking out the window and he's like, this reminds me of another day when it snowed like this. And his wife's just sitting there and she's doing her sewing and she's not saying anything. And he proceeds to tell the whole story. Now, he's kept this secret for years and years, and for some reason he just spills the story. And his wife is just sitting there, and she's not saying anything until he gets to the part of the promise, and she basically finishes his sentence, and he goes, uh-oh. Oops. And she gets up, and she goes into the room where all the kids are sleeping, and she gives each one a kiss, and she's like, you're still cute, and now you're the father of my kids, and that is the only reason I'm not going to kill you. bye-bye. And she takes off, and he never sees her again. But basically, being cute saved his butt from literal freezing to death twice in a row. So if you're gonna break a promise to a demon, be cute.
I would advise most people, you're probably not cute enough.
I want to know how cute this guy had to be. Like how beautiful was this young man that she was just like, I can't do this.
I mean, I guess like J-pop star levels of cute
I mean,
at this point.
Yeah, like early era Johnnies, and if you get that reference, you get points.
I have no idea what that means.
I know you don't.
Why do you torture me so?
Anyway. But yeah, so be like extremely hot, then you can maybe get away with breaking a promise to a demon. Everybody else, no, you stick to that promise, or she will eat you. Interestingly enough, as we go along, if we do more Japan stories, you'll notice that's a theme. Like, just mind your own freaking business, and it's fine. Don't talk, don't say anything, don't go, digging where you're not. Just mind your own business, and you're fine.
See, I feel like the fairy tales I know more of like Western ones, it's you're gonna die either way, so you might as well try and do something about it.
No. Japan is just like, no, just mind your own business. It's fine.
Keep your head down and shut up, and you'll probably survive.
I love seeing the juxtaposition of those morals, too. But, yeah, so thank you for tuning in to our second episode. Stick around for Enya's Inquiries. Thank you to her for that fun little corner, and I hope none of you had nightmares about bees with teeth last week. So, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.